Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to the IC3 Dialogues. I'm Khushboo Bedi, heading the career cell for the Sanskaar Valley School. And trust me, I am super excited today because I've got one of my favorite persons right here with me, Miss Amrita Ghulati. A very warm welcome, Amrita.
Thank you, Khushboo. Always a pleasure to chat with you. And I think it's a mutual admiration here, right? We love your work and I think we all learn from each other. Thank you for having me.
Lovely. So today the topic that we have is a very interesting topic, and that is developing a reporting mechanism for counseling in schools. I'm myself intrigued, and I've been thinking about reporting and data since the time Amrita and I discussed this topic. So I'm really looking forward to this. And before that, just a little bit about Amrita for all of you. So Amrita Ghulati has been closely involved in the education space since 2006, first as a high school educator, then as the head of the Career Counseling Center at the Sri Ram Schools, followed by assistant directorship for global education and strategic programs at Ashoka University. Her interest lies in exploring growth opportunities for young adults and helping them navigate their higher education choices and journeys further on. In order to take this strong interest forward, she's keenly working towards training and capacity building in schools across the globe to embed counseling as a central function in her current role as the academic head for the IC3 Institute. All through, Amrita has been an active IC3 volunteer since 2016. What a lovely and interesting journey.
Thank you, Khushboo. And I think IC3 really does have the glue to bring us all together.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Amrita. All right. So without wasting a minute, let's get into the real discussion. So my first question to you, Amrita, is, why do you think a career cell at school should have a reporting mechanism in place? And what are really the benefits of reporting and recording?
Thanks, Khushboo. So, I think that if we're really saying that counseling is as important as any other function in a school or as any other department, and in fact is a central function which gives meaning to other academic departments, right? Like if you're saying you're teaching math, you're teaching psychology, teaching history, but it's really the career counseling department which is telling you what can you do if you have an interest in psychology, what can you do if you have an interest in math, etc. So it's really helping take all the other functions to the next level and provide a sense of meaning, direction, purpose to students, right? That's really the way we want counseling in schools, career and college counseling in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And hence, we need to report, record, reflect, the activities of the counseling department. And it shouldn't be just like, okay, I got a call from a university, they're proposing a session and I think this will be good for my kids. So let's do this. Or, okay, I read something and, I think I should share this or have this as a classroom discussion with my kids. Well, great, do this. But how are you all going to structure it together so that it comes together as a meaningful program? And also, how are you then going to report on the basis of, what all you did, where did it take you, what are some of the gaps, what are some of the things that really worked well? So in a summary, it's really to know the trends and responses. It's to know the areas that need more work. Like when you're teaching math, you know that some of the concepts will need more number of classes, right? So similarly, there are some things in counseling, like maybe explaining what holistic admissions is, or explaining, what are the role of an entrance test, how can you prepare for an entrance test, how soon you can start preparing. Maybe these are things that need extra attention, need reinforcement, repetition. So these are things that can come across when you actually put it all down on paper. You can track impact of your work.
Sure.
You can identify areas of improvement, that, okay, this is what I did this year. I got 50 universities, but maybe I did not cover X region and I see some interest there. So that, points you to an area of improvement. So only when you list all those 50 universities that came to your school, you'll see, are you overdoing one region, underplaying another region,
True.
etc. And I think for me, the biggest goal is really to identify what is my overall growth going to be.
Mhm.
So, and if I draw a parallel, to other departments, like let's say, if you're tracking the progress of any, academic department,
Mhm.
you'll know, okay, from last year, my highest in board exams in English was, let's say, 90. This year, it's become 92. My grade average was 80. This
Mhm.
year, it's 80. It's a very objective way of understanding the progress and the growth and, the
Sure.
impact of the department. How do you do this for a counseling function?
Right.
And why should it not begin to sort of um, have that intent and purpose and match that level of clarity in our,
Yeah.
reporting and in our understanding of the function? And
Absolutely.
this forms the basis of saying, okay, this is all that we are doing. This is this is what we are doing well. This is where we need more assistance on. And just make your plan for the next year as well. Reflect on this year, make your plan for the next year. And like I say, it's if you have a sports department, what is even their objective is clear, their outcome is clear, maybe to make teams. You can say how many, competitions they won.
Mhm.
But are you also thinking about overall fitness of students? Is that also a parameter? So until unless you identify your parameters, until unless you're putting it all together in some kind of a report and recording all the data points that you're getting across, which should be quantitative or qualitative,
Sure.
um, there is no way that you'll be able to, enhance what you're trying to do.
Absolutely, I'm with you. So, one example that comes to my mind, a small thing that we did last year was we just tried to map where all our students have gone in terms of universities, along with the undergraduate programs, what they are pursuing. And what I realized was that we could very categorically come out with these are the top careers that our school students are pursuing, and that in turn helped us to internalize and take different departments help. So for example, we created different clubs. So if
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so if for example students are more into commerce and management, we had entrepreneurial club or debating club on business strategies and all of that. So overall, I felt that there was a graph, there was growth, and students
Mm.
valued what we as a career cell did for them, that extra bit. So I'm completely with you, and I understand there's a lot of value in doing this. All right, my next
And
question.
simply,
Yeah.
Khushboo, to what you mentioned, very beautifully and very unknowingly actually, is this, when you track this, though it's a report of the counseling department,
Yeah.
you could also talk to other departments to say, hey, this is a popular major. Maybe if we do some activities that are related to this, it will make them better prepared for these majors, or this interest will be nurtured better, right?
Right.
So it's another way that you can include others, and in the right manner.
Right. Absolutely. So, my next question to you is what parameters should really be a part of the report?
Great, Khushbu. So I'm just going to build on what you just, the example that you shared. If we take something very simple as universities that visited, applications that were made, offers that were received, and final placements.
Mhm.
This in itself has, connecting dots, right? You can see, okay, um, which universities, are sort of making their impact.
Yeah.
What is it that's helping, that's encouraging students to apply? So I think this is basic data, and also leads to your first sort of sort of transition to maintaining alumni data as well. And we know that kids love alumni coming back. So
Right.
something like, universities visited, applications made, offers received, placements taken up is some basic data. And that's one example. Overall, I think the areas and the data points that need to be reported must be identified along with their rationale. That why do we want to report and how are we going to source that data? So it's not only what I need to report, it's also why am I reporting that and how am I sourcing the data,
Right.
right? Another key example, which I remember we did back in school is predicted scores, the accuracy of predicted scores.
Right.
Increasingly, a lot of countries, even within India, they're making use of predicted scores in the application.
Right.
So what we would do is we would note down all the predicted scores, compare it with once the final results will be available, you put the final results against them, and you make this data available to the heads of departments.
Yeah.
Again, and particularly useful where there are large departments like math and English, where there may be 6 teachers each teaching a different section.
Yeah.
So you know that where is the variation coming, who's doing it, who has consistency, what could be some of the reasons. And it makes teachers also more confident in making predictions next year. They can say, okay, I thought this kid would get this much. I'm overestimating by this much percent or underestimating by this much, etc.
Right.
And also gives you confidence as a school that, okay, if I'm looking at applications which are heavily dependent on predicted scores, and the kids are not getting those scores, so therefore those applications or those offers don't hold true or don't hold good, right?
Right.
So what can I do? Changes that I can make. I don't have to relook at the way in which I'm giving predicted scores. So if you have an algorithm that you're using, you need to tweak that.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Then what are the choices of, like you mentioned, right? Like, that in your school, a popular major is, let's say, business.
Right.
Okay. Again, where is that coming from? Is it a really good teacher? Is it the socioeconomic background, or is it that that's what they know and they're not exposed to other programs? So as a counselor, do I need to expose them to other programs, or I have done this, yet their choice continues to be this? So choice of programs can give you that kind of insight,
Absolutely. This is a great point. Yeah. Yeah.
Trainings. What training do you need? Like, I'll give you an example. When we were back in school, when we had just started the counseling, this thing, we had no idea about how to help a child who would want to get into fashion communication. Not sort of a pure communication or a pure fashion design, etc. Or when we were trying to help students with some physical disabilities.
Right.
Students with learning disabilities, there were all conversations on whether this should even come up and should we declare this in the application or not, how do we look up support for disability, on their campus, on different campuses, because that would become a crucial factor in shortlisting the universities.
Yeah.
So if that's a training that I have undergone, am I putting that somewhere so that I can share it with my other peers, or I can make use of it again when I have similar, students coming back? So trainings and their impact, new areas of work, best practices included. So I'll share an example here, when you're writing letters of recommendation, which we all tend to sort of do, and it's not only the counselor, the teachers are also doing it, right?
Right.
A lot of times in 11th and 12th, there are new teachers.
Right.
They've not taught the students before.
Yes.
So we used to allocate a day or hours on, like when we used to have our stay backs, Friday stay backs or whatever. You used to designate one Friday where teachers can talk to previous teachers of that student.
Right.
Earlier, it used to be after writing the LOR when it was being proofread or, or when you're discussing it with the counselor, etc. And I would feel that, I actually disagree, or I think this should be, this can be written better or highlighted more. Sure. Then we realized that, it's very hard to make changes after the letter of recommendation has been written. So we should also make on that how do you train kids to write brag sheets or making brag sheets? Do you make brag sheets available only in grade 12? Like we started making them available in grade 11 so that we can start noting points, wherever. So this is something that we also learned only after we recorded, when kids would say it's too overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're doing essays also, you're asking us to write brag sheets also. I wish I had access to this earlier. This came up with 2-3 kids in their anecdotes, and then we're like, yeah, why can't we just make it available to kids earlier?
Absolutely.
So this is the benefit of sort of recording data.
The data. Even another very interesting thing we did was, So we tried to create that database where we started recording where is the student interest lies in grade 10th or 11th,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
mapping it to ultimately where the child is ultimately, which university is the child going, what program, and then in life what is he really doing. And those makes all this, this made so much sense, and such interesting stories and journeys and meanderings. And when they come back and share these interesting stories with students, it also relieves students that, yeah, whatever we're thinking of, or if we are confused or we are feeling lost, or our dilemmas are all okay. And it's okay, we'll cross the bridge when it comes. And it's okay to take a gap year, perhaps. It's okay now, this senior is doing well in life. So this data actually sort of interweaved and helped us give some interesting stories to our students as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Khushbu, what you're mentioning is the stories. So I look at data in two ways. One is, of course, the qualitative of these stories, these
Yeah,
anecdotes. The other is also just hard facts and numbers and all of
right.
that. So, and I remember that we were debating back in school, should we have an upper cap on the limit of applications, the number of applications the students can do, and data that helped us
Right.
convince, whether it was the management or the parents, was we are saying that on average the kids are making X number of applications. They're receiving on these applications these many offers, but they're going to one
Hmm.
university. So how are
Right.
they spreading themselves thin to do so many applications?
Yeah.
Is it impacting their academics or not? So I think a lot of having that data there was the only way that
Sure.
we could have a healthy conversation and decision out of it. you know
Yeah.
so both, I think, quantitative qualitative data matters.
Absolutely. So my last question to you is, as you know that many of our counselor colleagues, they run a one person cell. And when we discussed this, even I was feeling a little overwhelmed that, with all the work pressure, do you think we can really handle this? And so I really want you to answer this question, that help us see some value in doing this, going that extra mile and putting in that extra effort in recording, and managing data.
Okay, I hope I can do justice to this question. So, Khushbu, I totally understand, what you're saying and where you're coming from. My first point is that actually you have all the data. It's about putting it in one place. That's the difference. It's not like you don't have data.
Right.
The other is that, how can you use technology? So how can you make it better to sort of easier with the use of technology? And the second is, how can you get student volunteers? So within the student council or otherwise in grade, enthusiastic kids, you can just say that, from every month's schedule, can you at the end of 3 months tell me all the, 20 universities that visited? So make use of student volunteers and engage them in this,
Sure.
process as well.
Yeah.
The other is, how are you, like I said, it's important how you will collect this data. So how do you want to, do you have any sort of periodic intervention where you take data? So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I know that, we don't even have complete lists of the universities that a student is applying to.
Right.
So can you make it contingent on something, which, and so that you ensure that you get the data. So it's also about how you're fetching this data, in what format are you going to use Excel,
Yeah.
where, you can run, data sort of pivots there, So I think it's about that. And why when you talk about bringing value, I can assure you that, and I can give you enough examples of how it can increase your efficiency. So, a simple example, a lot of times you'll realize when you do orientations, let's say subject choice orientations, which we all
Right.
do, right, at grade
Yes.
10, etc.
Yes.
Okay. You'll notice after doing it for 2, 3 years that there are some questions that come up every time.
Correct.
You can just form an FAQ.
Correct.
So when you send an invite to the, parents or to the students, further this thing, subject choice orientation. You can send them the subjects that are available in your school along with some of the frequently asked questions. So that when you do that 1 hour orientation, you're optimizing your time. You're not repeating yourself over those same questions.
Absolutely.
The things that kids find difficult, like following timelines of different countries when they're applying to.
Right.
You can make that on one timeline, 1 year, you can map all of those. So that again, you can make it available, at a place where they see often. So again, you're reducing your time to repeat things. So it can bring in efficiency, right? The other is you can get approvals on budgets for training, saying that, these are things that we see coming up. And, when you have trainings, which are paid trainings, you can show your management why these are needed. So, budget approvals becomes easier. Enhancing the quality and timing of your work. Like the example that I gave you, that we realized that interaction between teachers on student recommendations or on student profile should happen before they write the letters of recommendation rather than after. It's a simple change. It was that 1 hour allocated, but it's just we've changed the timing.
Right.
Or when have you made the bag sheets available? Should it be available grade 11 onwards or only grade 12 onwards? It's again a simple change. So it's not, and these simple changes go a long way in the success of your students and in the success of your work.
Absolutely.
So I think there is a lot of, and also you understand, right? Like, and I know, like, for example, when you do your UK applications or whatever, you see the offers that come with the conditions. So if you use that report, it makes suggesting universities for the next batch of kids for similar programs so much easier. Okay, these were the average predicteds of this kid. He made these choices. These are the places from which he got offers, and the offers had this condition.
Correct.
Okay, so this makes your work a lot more accurate. So I think, and the more, the better recommendations, the more accurate your data, the more merit and, in your work. So in terms of efficiency, in terms of capturing impact, in terms of improving the quality of your work, the timing of various initiatives, you'll also realize what are things that you can communicate over email or over a newsletter versus which need one-to-one or addressing a group, that kids we are, constantly you think that you're doing this in emails, but obviously if it's not getting through, then it needs to be addressed in a small group or in a class or in a one-to-one. So I think a lot can come from these reports. But you have to be intentional about it. It's not, you have to start planning what are my parameters which I need to report. Even things like you'll be able to gauge whether general awareness levels of students and parents have increased or not. What are some of the best ways that you can integrate other departments? And you yourself gave an example, right? When you could suggest a club. So profile building activities can be supported. And a lot, where can if you have some external examination dates, that's very close to your school exam dates. That can compromise both performance on both. So I think just knowing data, knowing, facts can really prove helpful in many, many ways. And these are just some that are coming to the top of my head. It'll be very specific to your school, to what you decide to report on. And I think end of the year, it makes for some very honest reflections and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And one small thing that I started doing was all the student walk-ins. There were so many walk-ins, but the management would never witness that themselves, and so they would not really know that that's the kind of work that we have and we are managing for the school. When I started maintaining data of simple walk-ins, they were surprised that, oh my God, with all the work that you're doing, you're also managing so many walk-ins of parents and students. So it's only the power and the magic of data that I could just give them that proof that, hey, look here, how much work we're putting in. And, so that's really the magic of data. And I really feel that let's not get overwhelmed as counselors. I know there's so much to do in this space. Maybe take small steps and maybe take those small little decisions and be intentional about data only for specific things maybe for this year and something else for the next year, so that we can gradually put in systems and processes in place and not really feel overwhelmed and overburdened. Yeah.
Yeah, and Khushbu, another suggestion would be maybe just to have a template. The universities that visited this year, what did I read? What was new for me this time? Number of appointments I handled. Maybe just do these 2, 3 things, which you report on a monthly basis.
Right.
The other thing, like Khushbu, you yourself mentioned, I think it's a great way to make the whole school ecosystem understand what the work of a counselor is.
True.
The length and breadth of the work that we
Absolutely.
do, because often there is an understanding that you don't have a fixed class load, you don't have a correction load, etc. So I think a lot gets missed, in the process of sort of just saying that, hey, they don't have classes, they don't have corrections, but hey, listen to what we have, and I think that's where the report can,
Yes.
also be helpful, though that may not be the primary purpose.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Amrita. This was super amazing. And I'm really going back as a counselor with so much of homework and a lot of introspection. We might not be reporting all of this to our heads or principals, but I think it's even a good start for self-reflection and introspection for the work we're doing. I'm sure this is going to help us to get accuracy, efficiency, growth, and everything. So thank you so much, Amrita, for taking out time. I really enjoyed this session.
Pleasure, Khushbu. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'd love to see counseling functions become more and more robust, more structured across schools, and, grow really in what we're able to offer and the difference we're able to make to the lives of students.
Absolutely.
So thank you once again.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. Keep watching the space for more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.